Live. Nate should be joining us momentarily. And I guess the theme of today is Utah. And in fairness, I'm kind of relieved, and I enjoy taking a break from Minnesota, which seemed to be the other place that we just couldn't get away from. Everything was going on in Minnesota with obviously Alex Preddy, what was going on there, but then everybody started to forget about Luigi Mangione, a little bit of Minnesota connection there. But we're going a little bit further south to Utah, where they seem to be having their own issues here with the Charlie Kirk assassination, Tyler Robinson, and the case of I spaced her name, Kouri
Richins. Kouri Richins, yeah.
Kouri Richins. And I had not heard about that case. I haven't been following the true crime aspect of things quite as much lately. So we've brought on to help us catch up with that today. He's kind of a rising star in the true crime community, Phil Holloway, who he used to be with us more, but now he's big time. He's on the Megyn Kelly network with the
rising star. That's the guy. Phil is the guy.
I know.
The rising star. Phil is the guy I go to.
Hopefully, I'm not topped out yet. Well, Nate, and you guys, all you guys are really I'm a Johnny come lately compared to you guys. You guys been doing this a lot longer.
So. Johnny come lately, who's starting to zip by us.
Exploding like a bomb on us.
Where'd he go? Okay.
And when they catch up to Ryan too, when you guys catch up to Ryan's
going to be coming up fast.
Person. Yeah,
I'm starting to slow, but I'm getting there. Give me time.
You're doing great, man. You're doing great. So,
well, thanks to you. Right. I appreciate it. Nate and I just wanted to let everybody know, we did a show yesterday too, and it kind of ties in a little with both you. Actually with at least one case here, Tyler Robinson, because it's charming to talk about the guy who was actually on trial for killing Charlie Kirk. It's not the French. It's not the military. It's not the CIA. It's not Donald Trump. It's not the Mossad or Israel. It's not Egyptian planes. There is a person on trial, and his name is Tyler Robinson. So, Phil, apparently there were some moves that were made this week, and a decision that could be very important and impactful to the case. Can you tell us about what is going on?
All right. So just by way of recap, I've got lots of things that I can talk about this particular case and this judge. Don't even get me started on my soapbox on courtroom transparency and open courts. That seems to be a recurring theme in this case. But, there had been a pretty weak effort, I thought, by the defense team. And look, I don't blame people for trying, but this just seemed like a stretch. So they wanted to disqualify the entire county attorney's office because the adult daughter of one of the assistant prosecutors in their office was present when Charlie Kirk was killed. And, they said, all right, based on how quickly the district attorney or county attorney, they call it there, announced that he wanted to seek the death penalty, then clearly that was somehow proof that the prosecutor's office was acting on emotion because one of their employees or deputy DAs had a daughter present or something like that.
So revenge?
Yeah, no, I don't know. It's just the allegation was kind of silly, but the judge took his sweet time. By the way, this should have been like a ruling from the bench, like immediately, not dragged out. But everything in Utah seems to take forever. But the judge finally said that lawyers, prosecutors do not have to be immune from the emotional response of others to prosecute a case. And Eric, you may have some video that I sent you of the.
Hopefully Nate can pull it up. I've been having problems where when I play video, it likes to stutter. And I don't want to torture the audience with that. I apologize ahead of time for that.
Which one is it?
Well, I just had sent Eric some video of the
he's got the email that you sent me. I forwarded it.
Phil, you forwarded me email.
While Nate's pulling that up, that just seems like such a Hail Mary. Even if I think if you had the motion as to one prosecutor
that's a low probability motion. But to disqualify the whole office because one person's daughter was there, that seemed like even if it was a good motion as to one, why would it disqualify the whole office? I don't understand.
I think their argument was like, hey, look, it was Chad's daughter. She was there. We need to that could, we're all like, I remember her growing up. We worked here forever. Our kids played soccer together. All of that. But honestly, it's a death penalty case. So,
well, you got to keep penalty case. Yeah, they got to put up all the roadblocks they can. I get that, and I don't fault defense lawyers for being zealous advocates,
of course.
But I agree. The judge could have said, get out of here.
It just took too long. And so here's what it was. We now know because, look, this is one of those things that in the beginning, all this stuff was sealed and it was secret. We weren't supposed to know what it was about exactly and all this. But now we know that it was about Deputy Utah County Attorney Chad Grunander is his name. And they said that his loyalty to his daughter obviously, somehow affected their judgment. But, of course, Judge Graff, to his credit, ruled that there's not a significant risk that his loyalty to his daughter would have affected his work or interfere with Tyler Robinson's rights.
Question. When you're saying about why the whole defense team, could that just be an anchoring negotiation? Get rid of all of them with the hopes that the judge might rule in their favor and say, well, we'll pull the one off and that would split the prosecutors and create a little bit of havoc to help the defense.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they just wanted to try to make some hay out of something, and it's one of these things that's like I would say it's a death penalty case, and so you try to put up all the stumbling blocks you can to the prosecutors. Interestingly enough, by the way, the same lawyer who's sort of the lead defense lawyer in that, her name's Catherine Nestor. She's also representing Kouri Richins, who's the other case out of Utah that I think we're going to talk about today. So she's the lead counsel on both of these things, and I believe she's court appointed in both instances.
Eric, can you do
somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think
no, she is.
Eric, you're going to have to play the videos because I don't have access to them.
But I agree with Phil. Eric, I think ultimately this wasn't going to sabotage because if they appointed another prosecutor to come in and take over, the facts are still the facts. They're going to get all the resources they need. They would still be able to prosecute him. It's about just making things more difficult and dragging it out because ultimately this is just delaying the inevitable, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, it reminds me when I was clerking, we did I helped the judge I was working for with a criminal prosecution. And at a certain point, the defense counsel just throws out every motion they can think of. Because, Phil, to your point, which I think is well taken, when your client's facing the most serious sanctions imaginable, life and liberty, why not throw some low probability motions against the wall in case they stick? It seems like a sound tactic, even if it's not going to work.
All right. Hopefully this plays okay for everybody.
Can I play this right here?
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
Prosecutors need not be immune to the emotional response of others to prosecute a case. Indeed, it is part of a prosecutor's duty to interview witnesses and victims and evaluate the impact of an alleged crime. A prosecutor need not be disinterested on the issue whether a prospective defendant has committed the crime with which he is charged. If honestly convinced of the defendant's guilt, the prosecutor is free, indeed obligated, to be deeply interested in urging that view by any fair means.
Okay, that's interesting. So he's saying, I'm interpreting correctly, that, they don't have to be neutral towards it or whatever. They can be angry. They can be enraged. They can be outraged and want vengeance. Is that a fair assessment or no?
Well, having been a prosecutor, I can tell you, if I talk to any witness about a case, and you can't. We're all human. We can't help but be influenced in some way by the feelings of others that are involved in our case. And if someone's experienced a trauma like that by being the victim of a crime or a witness to a horrible one like that, they're going to be affected. And so prosecutors aren't immune to that. And I think the judge's rulings are practical one, and it recognizes that fact.
And Phil, I think you'd agree, because I was not probably as long as you were a prosecutor, but I did for a little while. There are a couple people I sent to prison. I'm like, I am happy I did it. They deserve to be there. what they did was wrong and they need to be punished for it. Like sometimes like you can do something where it's like, it's truly horrible what you did. And it's more than me it's just business. Like the people they victimized, I'm like, I have nothing but the most sympathy for them in the world. And, the guy who did it, I could care less, about his concern.
Can I just say, and on the same, since we're on the topic of Tyler Robinson, there's also more news out of this. And let me pull up my show notes. We did this on, it's actually today's episode of MK True Crime was recorded yesterday. But there is, so the defense has a new request, by the way, to keep TV cameras and photographers out of the courtroom, saying that, quote, highly biased news outlets risk tainting the case. And of course, the prosecutors and the lawyers who have intervened in this case on behalf of the media, it's a limited kind of intervention in a criminal case, as well as Erica Kirk has intervened. They've urged the judge to keep the proceedings fully open, as have I. I completely echo that. I'm like an absolutist on this issue.
Well, I think all of us here.
Yeah,
I think I really look. But it's not. It goes beyond that. It's worse than that, Eric. The defense filed this motion, okay, and the written document itself has been classified by the court, by this same judge, as private, right? So that we can't see what it says. So not only are they asking to not have us be able to see what's in the court, for now, we don't even have access because they've labeled a public filing as private. And it's like there's this tendency with this case and this judge to sort of creep over into the closed court, secret court, hidden judicial process kind of realm that really, really troubles me. If I were the judge, look, absent something very, very, very compelling, we're not filing shit under seal, nothing. Cameras can be in the courtroom with certain restrictions, of course. Don't show jurors, don't show the defense lawyers. Whoever had that camera in there like early on that was focused on the defense table was just dumb. But we can place the camera. We can make it a pool camera. It's in the back. We're not going to zoom in on it, but these things all need to be open, including the filings. All right, that's it for my rant.
Yeah, but you can't avoid biased reporting because mass media don't care if it's cameras or not. They will still report as they do. So cameras will actually only add new perspectives because people in this panel and other people can then check the trial out and bring their own perspectives.
I agree with you, Nick. And I think in this case of Tyler Robinson, I think all cases it should be, but I feel like it's even more important because I was being sarcastic earlier when I said, hey, it wasn't the Egyptians, it wasn't this, it wasn't that. Well, when you have a massive, and I mean, let's be honest here, massive influencer who is currently making bank on this entire situation, spreading information or whatever you want to call it every single day, I think it's urgent to show a transparent proceedings so the public can compare the record. Here is the damn trial. Here's what's going on. And maybe it can lessen the impact of other bullshit, to put a nice term to it, that is out there.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Utah's law specifically, but to my knowledge, every state that I've ever worked in has had some presumption that you get open courts, and then you have to overcome that with a specific showing. And Phil, since you've been on the weeds on this, it sounds like, is it right that it's not that the judge has said that there's a specific reason why the court has to be closed or that these things have to be sealed forever? It's that the judge is slow to rule on this, and
there's some of all that.
It's private until it's public until he rules.
There's some of all that. Not that I agree with it, but they've actually had hearings that were conducted in secret, and they've released a transcript a month later, which is not really, it's not adequate. Look, this is take everything else out of it. Take the people, the players, the specifics. This is a death penalty case. But even if it weren't a death penalty case, in our justice system, we want the public and society, let's just say society at large, we want to have some confidence that the system worked, that it worked fairly. And particularly if we're going to put somebody to death, we want the disinfecting power of the sunlight in that courtroom so that the public can have some confidence that it was done right. And we're not going to execute somebody unless it was done right. Okay. And so the starting place ought to be a strong, almost complete presumption of openness, with very, very few exceptions to that. And so this judge seems to be quick to label documents, filings as private or whatever. And like in this case, only the prosecutor can see it, the court can see it, and the media attorneys who have intervened, he's allowed them to see it so that they can mount a response. But what we don't know is he going to have a hearing on this that's private? I mean, in the past, he's had like hearings that were conducted in private to see if the next hearing was going to be conducted in private. So it's just like, there's this tendency to ease over in that direction. Now, the judge isn't completely there. For the most part, he's ruled against these efforts. I'm trying to be fair, but I think he's still, in my opinion, too much leaning towards secrecy in so many of these things.
Is he just gun shy? I mean, I'm just wondering if he might be timid, because this is a big case. And I think about was it Judge Ito with O.J. Simpson, was that guy's name or whatever? Or didn't he face a lot of the same criticisms of being very timid and with his judgments and things like that? Where, I mean, you've got the governor of the state involved. You've got, all the way up. This is a national case. It's really, I think, the biggest case from last year. Is that it? Is it just like, I am a little worried, so I want to be quiet about it and really make sure everything's shaken out okay before I put my neck out.
We have had so many trials the past few years where the public's perception have changed thanks to cameras in the courtroom that we heard. That is one extreme example. And more recent, the Faust trial, the cold case from 2001, more or less the entire coast of folks believed he was guilty. And then we saw the trial and we got, no. So that kind of, over here in Europe, we don't have what you have. All our trials are closed. We don't even in Sweden. I don't even have I don't get recordings. I have to be there, or I have to wait for the transcripts, and then I only have the words. I don't get the nuances.
Yeah. Well, here we do, and it's enshrined in our Constitution, and it's in the United States. The reason that we have the open courts that we have is because it's in direct response to something called the Star Chamber, which was England's very abusive, court from, I don't know what the hell years were on that thing. 1700s anyway, probably before Eric was born. But anyway, that was a secret court. And because it was secret, there was all kinds of abuses. And so our legal system and the openness of it is based on basically a reaction to, we don't want to do it that way, and we're not going to do it here in the United States. But out in Utah, we've got the Kouri Richins case going on right now. It's open to the public. There's not been, we haven't seen this kind of issue with privacy, and it's they've got cameras in there. We're live streaming it on MK True Crime. Nick, I know you're covering it. A lot of streamers are covering it, every minute of it. And we haven't had this issue also within the same state. But if you look at the two judges involved, very different personalities.
Different cases, Phil. Again, when you say that the Kouri Richins case is nowhere near the stakes, and I'm not trying to downplay it, but it's some would call it a more pedestrian. It's a straightforward murder, blah, 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 blah. Not a political assassination with somebody who helped get the president elected.
Well, I think the
stakes are a little different.
Of course, there's a difference, but substance, on the substance of what matters for this discussion, I don't think they're different. It's a criminal case. Sure. It's in court. It's got media attention, the public's attention, and the public has a right to see it. The media's got a right to cover it.
If I'm going to just playing devil's advocate for a second, because by the way, Phil, I'm largely on your side on this, but just to play devil's advocate.
If you're not.
Right. There was a criminal case I worked, right? And the cooperating witness was a member of the Orthodox Jewish community, right? So the day, days, he was on the stand for days and days and days, but the day that he came up, suddenly the courtroom is filled with a bunch of very, very intimidating Orthodox Jews who disapprove of him providing this testimony. And they're giving him death stares. And they're like, and the basically the openness of the courtroom created a vector of attempting to influence the proceedings that then the judge and the deputy had to control, right? And so in a case like this, where you have like really the highest possible stakes, a presidential assassination attempt, isn't there some sense where the judge would be saying like, I'm a little bit leery of letting this turning into a grandstanding theatrical issue, and then potentially in the worst case scenario, creating grounds for an appeal or a mistrial if something happens that, some influencer comes in the courtroom, does something wild. Now I've got to figure out whether the jury's tainted.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp.
I was going to say this is
you don't let everybody with a camera in. You have a pool camera.
Yeah.
Well, and I agree with Phil here. This isn't the first trial that's been massive. We've had Johnny Depp, we've had OJ. I mean, these judges are supposed to go to judicial conferences, and you think they'd sit there and tell them, like, look, run it normally. You can't have one eye on history. The other thing judges are always terrified of, for some reason, they're worried about getting overturned in the Court of Appeals. Like, okay, great. They say you're wrong. It's not like they're going to take your job from you. Just do your job like you would normally. Like if it's Bob murdering his neighbor, how would you handle it? It'd be like every other day. Well, okay. A guy named Charlie got shot. Like simplify it. What happened? Okay. Everybody's allowed to come in. We're not doing this secretively unless it's what we would do every other time. And I don't understand why this judge is doing it. But the judge in the Kouri Richins trial, he has just been boom, 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 boom. And I've been very impressed with that. But this guy
he's got a great voice for radio too.
He does.
I do want to say this because the
guy in the Charlie Kirk trial scared his own shadow.
The other, like there's a counter argument to this is that essentially I call it the judge's sovereign citizen argument, where yes, the trial is open to the public, but the form and substance in which it's open is determined by us, right? For instance, Scopes Monkey trial, when they had too many people want to go, they took the trial outside and they had the trial outside so everybody can watch the trial. In terms of, so a lot of these courts, like the Supreme Court, says the trial is open to the public. You just have to come and sit in the courtroom. We don't have to put it over the airways. So are we advocating for public trials to now mean trials broadcast to the general public, where anybody can see it no matter where you're at? Or are we advocating for what is currently now? Where you have the right to go to the trial, but you don't have a right to have it broadcast.
I'm actually with you, Nate. Like I know it's bad for our business in terms of legal commentary, but the fact that SCOTUS doesn't let cameras in the courtroom, I think is a really good thing. Like in that particular forum, the risk of grandstanding and playing for the cameras, it's already really high.
There's audio,
what you do.
Yeah, but the difference between an audio clip and a video clip, like one of the things that preserves the long-term reputation of the court to me is that when somebody says something stupid in the Supreme Court, there's no great video clip to go mega viral. There's just the audio clip. Okay. And it already does go fairly viral, but could you imagine if they could put together B-roll of one justice rolling his eyes at another justice?
Okay, but that's the option's not on the table right now. We have an either or. In fairness, it's either it is streamed or it's closed. You're bringing up a third option.
Well, I'm talking about the option Nate brought it up as an example.
Yeah, because like for instance, when it comes to sovereign citizens and driving, they'll say I was traveling, but then they'll say, well, you can walk wherever you want, but you don't have the right to drive. So we're talking about form, not substance in that particular thing. And I think that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the form in which it is open, not the substance that it is actually open to the public.
Yeah,
and I found a case where in Utah, death penalty case, where the Utah versus Douglas Lovell in 2015, his sentencing trial was televised in 2015, and then the Utah Supreme Court overturned the death sentence in 2024, also recorded and streamed by local news. So there are local precedent for DEP cases being televised, at least when it comes to sentencing trial.
I think in this day and age, see, if the rule is courts are open to the public, okay, then having a camera there, and if you look at it like remember the Fulton County, the Fannie Willis fiasco?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I'll go.
Well, the judge in that case, and it wasn't limited. It wasn't just for that case. Fulton County doesn't do everything wrong. Some things they do right, and one of the things that they've done pretty well is incorporate Zoom into courts. And so, like, you can go and see live, like with that particular judge, unless he's changed it, he's got a YouTube channel. You can go to Zoom and look on his YouTube channel. You can watch proceedings live, whether it's a divorce case, whether it's a guilty plea on a DUI or whatever the hell's going on that day. Anybody can go in and watch it.
Yeah,
you can go back and watch it.
Judge McBurney,
Can I?
Who might have an even lower base than the judge in the Kouri Richins trial.
Nick, to your death penalty case being televised question, there was one of the most famous death penalty cases of one of the most famous people in history, or notorious people in history, and it was televised end to end. It's one of the first cases ever televised. Has anybody ever heard of Ted Bundy?
No.
Yeah, of course. Teddy
No.
Bundy.
Yeah, no.
Teddy
That trial was televised.
I heard
The entire trial end to end is one of the first trials to ever be done. It was a death penalty case, and by the way, the sentence was carried out.
Yeah, same with that female serial killer.
Warnoff?
Vonis.
And don't forget, but Florida has the sunshine law, though. So Florida,
the
whole different.
They have sunshine, so why not?
Jeffrey Dahmer was on TV, and he represented himself.
And
the Constitution guarantees everybody the right to a speedy and public trial. And so some states
fair too. I hope
some states do better on how they interpret public. It's one obviously you can't just close the doors, although I remember a Fulton County judge tried to do that one time. You can't just lock the public out of the courtroom. But some judges and some states have done much better. And like you could just put a Zoom camera in the courtroom and just say, okay, you can't bring your own cameras in. Georgia actually has that rule. You can't bring a camera into a courtroom unless you get permission from the judge. Lawyers can take their cell phones in and things like that, but you can't record anything. You can't take pictures without permission. Okay, so you can get permission, but if you have a high profile situation, you just put one camera in there, make everybody share it. It's not complicated.
Yeah, there's good solutions like that. Like in the case I was referring to before, what they end up doing is they had a second room, right? So you got the camera set up, and then all the press are in the second room, and they're watching the screen, right? So they're actually not a place where the jury can see them, and the people in the courtroom are people who are, family members, that sort of thing, who are actually, like a different type of person is in the courtroom, which was done to reduce the risk of interfering with the jury in case of an influencer, that sort of thing. So I think there's solutions that work better than other solutions, but it also, I think, does have to get tied into the public interest. Like, we talked, like, this is obviously the highest public interest, but there's a reference earlier to a divorce case. The public interest in a divorce is real low, and the risk of embarrassment is real high. Right? Like, you're going to have testimony about how bad you are in bed. Like, do we really need a camera there for that? I know, Sean, it's, I heard stories about your prowess, but I don't think we need, we don't need a transcript
on
to
that
confirm.
note, I think if every trial is streamed, then you're almost going to flood the zone in a lot of ways. So only the ones that are going to generate a specific interest or whatever will even be observed. There will just be a lot of footage out there that people will probably never even watch, except for the people who care about it. So in a weird way, it's kind of like police body cam cameras. I think that the universality of it, if all of them are doing it all of the time, then it's probably going to kind of, shake itself out or sort itself out, in my opinion, too. Ones that are more critical are going to generate more attention. Those who are less critical, nobody's really going to care about, and they will just sit there like a tree falling in the forest that nobody hears.
And kind of going off of what you were bringing up here, Ryan, on two separate points. Like the Supreme Court's great because they release audio and there's transcripts available.
Mhm.
And the neat thing is, I don't have to pay for that transcript, which for a Supreme Court case, think about you ordering a transcript like immediately is a couple $1,000s. But this, so like it's provided. So, you know, that's open and public access to me. But for example, a divorce case, well, now somebody has to go get a copy of the transcript. That's going to be a couple $1,000s for them. So I think, you know, the public should have the right, like, what are your judges doing? Like, you should have the right to know and check on them, because if I can go sit in the courtroom, I should be able to go click, click, click and watch what they're doing right now.
Oh, you
There's
can pull,
literally
like
no
you, and you can pull the judge in the Kouri Richins case, which maybe we can get to in a minute.
Yeah,
but
we're going to shift to
he
that.
mentioned the other day, I forget which lawyer he was talking to. They had a question about something that was said the day before, and there was a question of, can we get the transcript? The judge says, no, you can just go look on YouTube. You can look at every minute.
Yeah. Well, that was about the expert. That was
Yeah.
the expert. Like, well, our expert may not be able to hear all this. He's like, he can watch the, you know, the court TV recording, and it's like,
Yeah.
Let me do this. Let me give everybody a quick breakdown of the Kouri Richins case, where we're at now, what the theories are, and please, you guys, correct
Well, the
me
history.
if
Go
I
back
say
to like what the heck it is.
Yeah,
Like
so
what happened.
I have it all briefed out. So we're at the third district court in Park City, Utah. Judges Lori Scott. Core allegation: prosecutors allege that Kouri Richins, she's a real estate agent and author, that they say she murdered her husband Eric Richins by spiking his celebratory Moscow Mule with 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl on March 4th, 2022. The prosecution's theory of the case: they say that her motive was a $4.5 million in debt, and she recently overdrafted her accounts by $300,000. She allegedly believed that she was going to inherit her husband's $4 million estate, though he secretly moved it to a trust so she couldn't access it. Now, prosecutors also alleged that there was a practice run, and they charged her with attempted murder. This was for a Valentine's Day incident in 2022, that incident where Eric became violently ill after eating a sandwich prepared by his wife for him. And he reportedly told a friend, I think my wife tried to poison me. Now, the evidence that they have of the poisoning is that they have a star witness, Carbon Lauber. She's the housekeeper who testified this week that she sold Kouri, the wife, fentanyl pills on multiple occasions leading up to his death. Now, the defense's theory is something different. The defense argues that there is zero physical evidence, no DNA, no nothing, no glass, showing exactly how the fentanyl entered the system. They are aggressively cross-examining the housekeeper, pointing out that her own dealer has recanted or given conflicting statements about the source of the drugs. And the defense suggests that Eric may have been a functional user of the drug, and this was like an accidental overdose, and they're trying to provide this.
Yeah.
So that essentially is that the breakdown of what's going on. What do you guys?
I have the prosecutor if you guys want that. That Phil sent me.
Yeah, this is part of the opening. This will kind of set, because it is an allegation that this was all done for money.
this prosecutor has the coolest name ever
Yeah.
for a
Bloodworth.
murder case.
And it looks
The
like
evidence will prove that Kouri Richins murdered Eric for his money and to get a fresh start at life. More than anything, she wanted his money to perpetuate her facade of privilege, affluence, and success.
Can I expand on that theme just for a second?
Yeah, between you and Nick, I'm kind of.
Nate, I think you did. Nate, I think you did a great job. But to further expand on this, like one of the things in this case is, according to court documents, they had a prenup that was signed on June 15th, 2013, and it outlined several financial agreements for their marriage. For example, the only way Kouri could claim ownership rights to the husband's business, Eric's business, should he die prior to Kouri while the two are married. The prenup states that Kouri would receive Eric's partnership interest in, it's called C&E, Stone Masonry LLC, and the only way she could get that is if he predeceased her. And then on November 30th, Eric created something called the Eric Richins Living Trust. The objective of that trust was to, according to Kouri Richins, was to provide for both her and their children. But before he died, Eric executed his will, and his will said that all of his estate be given to that living trust and administered under the terms of the trust, which was different than what Kouri was saying. But the big
who was
thing
the trustee?
Eric's sister.
Thank you.
So here's, and not his wife. So, but here's why, because this has been reported now, I think by Salt Lake Tribune and others. Eric, back in 2020, he told an estate planning lawyer that he wanted to protect himself from what they said, quote, recently discovered and ongoing abuse and misuse of finances. And then he goes on, like in, August of 2021 or June of 2021, to obtain a loan. Kouri Richins herself, she submitted a falsified bank statement to a financial institution using balance details and transaction descriptions from her husband's company that she had no right to. When a bank representative flagged it and said her credit appeared lower than expected, she said she was in the process of separation from her husband. And she also went so far as to, in January of 2022, she got a life insurance policy because Eric had taken her off of his policy as the beneficiary. Most people who are married have their wife, right? Or husband, if they're, whatever the situation may be, their spouse. But in this case, Eric took her off. And so in January of 2022, she got her own policy on Eric's life, named herself as the beneficiary, and didn't tell Eric anything about it. He had no affiliation or knowledge. And his signature on the application, according to prosecutors, is a forgery. So it's pretty deep as far as the financial problem.
But this has not been brought in this trial yet. Don't know if it will.
I just wanted to notate there was 26 financial fraud charges that were severed that she's still on the hook for. So all the financial fraud stuff was severed from this murder position. So she still got issues with that. Go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
And now the defense has indicated, at least in cross-examination with the sister, that Kouri might have had knowledge about this prior to the death, if I remember that correctly. I think Sean will correct me on that if he can. Also, we are 5 days in, and there are some aspects of this trial that bugs me. One of these things is why the allergy from the state to enter physical evidence. I will give an example. They brought 19 items to the examiner for the tests, and apparently none of them showed traces of fentanyl. So the defense goes in, well, how about this empty pill bottle? Objection from the state. We have not entered the itemized. So the defense were not allowed to ask about the empty pill bottle.
Well, I saw them asking a lot about the empty pill bottles. I think I sent one of the videos over as well to Eric. I may not have, but there was a video clip that we played.
Is that Chelsea Gibson?
That's one of them. Yeah.
I can put that one up real quick, and then they're very short. I can play them through.
What happened to the hydrocodone bottle that was sent with the body of the decedent?
It's under the medical examiner's office protocol to keep that until they're done.
So you don't have that bottle?
I do not know.
So all we have is a picture of that bottle?
Correct.
So it has never been taken for testing by you to anyone?
Correct.
So if there was fentanyl residue in that empty pill bottle from 2016, we won't know it because you never took it to be tested, right?
I was never given the bottle, no.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
so it's not accurate to say they weren't allowed to act, because clearly they're asking about it. And I think what the defense is doing, they're just trying to, they're trying to point out things that the cops didn't do in hindsight. And I think the prosecutor will point out, well, there's a lot of things that weren't tested. For example, the first responding police officer, his shoe wasn't sent to the crime lab either because it wasn't relevant to anything. And neither was this pill bottle. So this is just kind of standard stuff that we see in criminal cases, but the prosecutor is not trying to hide that. The prosecutor gave that information to the defense.
Yeah. Where I was going with this is the 19 items they did test. What are those items? We weren't allowed. I haven't heard what those items were.
Well, the trial's not over.
True.
We don't know. They haven't finished the case.
But now we have had the people who collected and who tested. They have already testified. Who's going to bring in that evidence if those people have already testified?
So
Well,
saying,
I don't know who else is left to testify, but what I'm saying is that in a criminal investigation, I used to be a cop for anybody who doesn't remember, so I can speak to some of that. So, you collect things and you send a lot of stuff off because you don't know if it's going to be relevant or not. And a lot of times it's not until after it comes back from the crime lab that it appears, not to have any bearing. Like we've seen this in other cases recently, in the Nancy Guthrie thing, which I don't mean to get it too far afield, but we found there was some DNA found. Everybody was all interested in the DNA until it turned out to be DNA of people who would have been expected to be in the house anyway. So it turns out to be not really relevant, but when they send things off for testing, they don't know. And so one of the things that the defense lawyers oftentimes do is they try to make some hay, if they can, out of things that weren't tested. And so the prosecutor's job is to come back, if they can, and point out to the jury that, this thing that defense is asking about over here, the reason it wasn't introduced in this trial is because it's not relevant to anything.
Yeah, but if you have now, these 19 tested items, none of them showed residue of fentanyl. The question I ask is, why did they stop testing things in that case? Or as you say, it might come in later, but those are the questions I have now because I don't like having questions. We are 5 days into this trial and very few pieces of physical evidence have been shown to the jury. We've seen text messages. We have seen...
Well, we're still early on in the story, though. Like, we found the body. He's dead. What did we find inside his body? And now we're starting to, I think, from here, we found fentanyl. Okay, well, now they bring up, well, how did fentanyl come into this story? Here's the housekeeper. Like, I think we're now getting to the point, Nick, where they're going to start unraveling all of that for people.
By the way, the housekeeper, it wasn't just that the housekeeper supplied Kouri with fentanyl. The housekeeper supplied Kouri with fentanyl because Kouri asked her to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nate,
I think
Kouri paid her to go get fentanyl.
Yeah, I was going to say
it's just telling a story. You have to tell a story and you got to tell it in a pattern. And as we go here, I think we're going to see more and more and more. But also in a situation where it's just fentanyl, you're not necessarily going to have a bunch of physical evidence.
There's no gun. There's no blood splatter.
Yeah.
There's going to be a toxicology report.
Go ahead, Nate.
No,
you got a lot of circumstantial evidence.
Yeah, it sounds like that's the key difference here, right? It seems like Nick is asking for direct evidence, right? You tested this, the fentanyl came from. Where is the direct evidence of the fentanyl? And the circumstantial evidence is we got the housekeeper, we got all this.
Yeah.
So the credibility issue. Go ahead, Nick. You speak for yourself.
Yeah. I must say, with this witness, most people on my channel knows that I really do not like prison snitches. I really don't, because they have nothing to lose by lying. If they are believed, they get off. If they're not believed, they are in the exact same situation as before.
Isn't that a problem?
This is probably the first witness that I didn't get that I think she's bullshitting. So yeah,
well, you can't really just build a case solely on a jailhouse snitch. And this housekeeper is not a jail snitch. I mean, she's testifying with immunity because literally what she's testifying to is trafficking drugs.
Yeah.
And so the only way to get her to testify,
she was facing quite serious charges.
No, she has a right to remain silent. So the only way to get around that is to get her immunity. So if we were basing this prosecution solely on what she said, I'd have a problem with that too. But we're not. There's so many other things that I think back up what she's claiming. I personally think the evidence is overwhelming. The financial stuff in and of itself is absolutely damning. Okay, and without
I'm still waiting for.
I don't know how they do it in Utah, but typically in the trials I've seen, what they do is that they give, they either give the immunity or they give a promise that they're going to have a favorable recommendation at a sentencing for a lesser crime for the cooperating witness, but the deal's conditional, right? Like if you perjure yourself. You lose your immunity. Like there's things you can do where the immunity goes away.
Yeah, but,
Yeah,
who is going to prosecute the perjury if the perjury is in the wrong direction?
Well, I mean, the thing that it becomes in the defense counsel's interest to prove that she was lying, right?
Yeah.
So if the defense counsel can prove that she's lying, then suddenly the whole case collapses, and the immunity it can become a very public death sentence to both the immunity and the prosecution.
I will give an example from the Zachariah Anderson case where Munch heard Zachariah confess in his sleep. 3 months after sentencing, Munch went off and he moved to Florida. And now 2 years later, he's in jail again. So, yeah.
I know.
To Phil's point, though, there's a difference between a jailhouse snitch and a cooperating witness, which I think is like it's a separate category.
Nick,
if she's facing 5 to life, if she doesn't, what's the difference?
Nick, I think the issue is that this reminds the better example would be the WWE trial of Vince McMahon when he was on trial for steroids. Hulk Hogan, they gave immunity to testify, right? He testified truthfully, blah blah blah, blah, and he wasn't perjury. Vince McMahon got off. He was found not guilty. That didn't destroy Hulk Hogan's deal that they found him not guilty. Because the way you make it sound like if they don't convict this person, then it's going to be not guilty. But in that case, Hulk Hogan testified truthfully, and the jury believed him, but still found Vince McMahon not guilty. So your testimony, so the deal is for your testimony, as long as it's truthful, not for the outcome of the case. If that makes sense.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, and I've got at least 2 cops on here. It's kind of a problem that criminals tend to hang out with not nice people who may have a bit of a dark history themselves and probably have other motives. So it's very difficult to find a pristine witness, especially when you're talking about criminality. Or am I wrong? Am I completely off my rocker?
No, you're right. Look, if you want to go find illegal drugs and it's not something you normally do, you're going to either have to have a guy or know somebody who knows a guy or a gal, as it may be in this case.
Yeah,
well, so you're going to have to source your, in this case, the murder weapon allegedly. You're going to have to source that through someone who's plugged into that scene, and so it's perfectly rational and reasonable to me that the housekeeper has had problems with drug charges in the past because she's obviously plugged into it. She knows where to go and she needs to get some.
Let me ask you guys one thing before we move forward.
I was just going to say,
go ahead.
Phil, I think you'd probably agree with this because I've had this argument before when I present a case. Like I'm sure you have too, where you have a witness that's going to be very unsavory. Yeah. These things don't happen at the Kiwanis or luncheon. Like you're not going to find it there. Like
it would actually look worse if it did. If it did, it would look odd, right? I mean, if you found somebody who's like never had anything, they're purely clean, they're all American, they're everything else. It's like, oh, that was my source for fentanyl. It'd be like,
well,
really?
And then also play it out, right? Like imagine this housekeeper or Hulk Hogan. You don't give them immunity, and then you put them on the stand, and they say, "What did you do?" And she says, "I take the fifth."
Yeah, you don't get their testimony,
right? You know, I mean, like they'll never. If you don't give them immunity, there's no testimony at all. Like there's just there's no way to get it. So you have to immunize them to bypass.
I got to point out a hole in what you just said. I'm sorry. And over here we get convictions without snitches or a public trial.
Yeah, hello. You don't get a public
trial. Can I point that out? I just want to point that out.
You might get to see what goes on in those courtrooms.
I did want to ask all of you about the dog walking letter. Like, so.
Oh, I can't wait for that one to enter.
So, just so everybody understands what we're talking about, Kouri Richins, she wrote a letter in her cell that alleged that she instructed her mother and to tell her brother. Am I getting this right? She instructed her mother to tell her brother that Eric, her husband, bought the drugs from Mexico.
Yeah.
And the defense claims that this was just a storytelling for a book and not reality. Yeah. So I think what Phil is saying is like, that's very damning that she's selling, so.
Yeah. I can't
what do you feel about that? Was that direct enough or do you think that's still?
No, I mean, I said this on my channel as well. I can't wait to look at the stuff I know should come in later. These are questions because presumably the jury has no idea about this.
Yeah.
So my questions are more aligned with what do we have in the trial as of now.
Okay.
Now, I followed Jeff when he covered all of this back in 2024. May he rest in peace. He would have a field day with this trial. That I'm so bummed out I don't get to watch him cover this.
Yeah.
But I'm waiting for all the stuff. But as of now, with the evidence that it has been admitted, I have questions. And one of the questions I have is the statement from the cop in the interview with this witness, where instead of "we want you to tell us the truth, and if you tell us the truth, we can cut you a deal," he said, not verbatim, "we need evidence to put Kouri away." That's a weird statement for me, because that would, I don't say that this witness is lying, because I don't get that feel from her. But that statement from the cop in that interview, it's almost as if he insinuates to this witness, "Give us what we want." If you know what I mean, if you heard that part yet.
So
I've not
in
heard
other
that
words,
part
it sounds like you're saying you have a lot of issues with the credibility of the witnesses and the credibility of the evidence as of this moment. And Nick,
Yeah.
would it be fair to say you don't believe the government's proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt? You believe
As of now, definitely
as of right
not.
now.
As of right now, no. But I'm still waiting from stuff I know will show up.
How long do they
Unless
have to put on their side of the case? Do you know?
Well, I've heard 5 weeks
5 weeks.
total.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I would assume they have
Yeah.
3 weeks more, 3 weeks, and then
So
the
we
defense
haven't
gets
even
a few
really
days.
gotten into the real meat and potatoes of it.
Well,
yet,
yeah, like I
right?
said, the story still has to be told and fleshed out, and how Kouri acted after the murder, how she tried to start selling things. Because the sister brought it up, though, how she's the trustee and how Kouri tried to start screwing around with the trust. So yeah, there's a lot to come in still, but I mean, yes, as of right this second, technically, yes, they haven't proved it beyond a reasonable doubt, but you know, given what we know they're going to bring in and how this is going to play out, they're definitely going to convict her.
Eric and Nate, Nate, you mentioned something about the walk the dog letter.
Yeah.
So we had on our show a few weeks ago, we had Vinnie Politan. He's the lead anchor over at Court TV. And we had him on talking about this particular walk the dog letter. And honestly, nobody can explain it the way he does. I just pulled that up. If I can share my screen, I can share with you what Vinny said to us. Do y'all want to do that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
I like that.
All right, let me see if I can.
I like Vinny. He's a nice guy.
Oh, yeah. All right, so, I don't want to leave the studio. Sorry, I want to share my screen.
If you go to the place, you'll see present or invite.
It's just a matter of time.
All right, here it is.
But right now, from all the lawyers I've been watching, because I've been watching them, everybody's been saying the same thing. She's going to jail. She's going to jail. But I'm just like, but Nick is scaring me up now. Nick is like, like, what's going on?
All right, so this is, I just moved to the part where Vinny, so let's just see what he's got to say. Maybe witness intimidation or interfering with a witness. You've been talking a lot about this walk the dog letter, right? So this might be the defendant Richins.
Can you pause it real quick?
Interfering with some witnesses.
Second.
What's up with that?
Yeah.
Can
This
you pause it
is
real quick.
and what's interesting, after her arrest, they've actually gathered more.
I will say this. I love how Phil was so prepared with the videos today, because I said walk the dog letter, and he literally has on the show walk the dog. I gotta say, brother, that was fantastic. I am extremely impressed. So continue to play, but man, this is great. This is fantastic.
Evidence, and some of the most compelling evidence from my perspective, showing consciousness of guilt. She's locked up pre-trial, right? And there's one of these random searches of her cell, and in a book they find an envelope that is, I'm not sure if it was sealed or not, but it was addressed to her lawyer, but it was her writings. They go through it and they find this walk the dog letter. And the letter is actually not to her attorney, or who is now her former attorney, probably because of this. It's a letter to her mother to talk to her brother. And she wants, in the letter, she's directing her brother and giving him almost like lines to tell investigators that the victim, her husband, who was poisoned with fentanyl, was down in Mexico trying to buy fentanyl and had talked to him about it. Trying to set up a story that her husband died of an overdose, but it was a self-induced overdose, not the poisoning of his Moscow Mule or orange juice, whatever it was that he was drinking that night. And it looks really bad. Now, like we said, she has this book that she wrote. So the defense or the story behind this letter is, this isn't a letter. This is like a treatment on another book I'm going to write. Like, she's this prolific author. She's not a prolific author. Eric, her husband, met her when she was working at Home Depot, and he was picking up supplies for his construction company. She's not an author. She wants to be a house flipper. She thinks she's Christina Hawk from HGTV, but she's a failure. Her husband dumped hundreds of thousands of dollars into her business and then was cutting her off because he didn't want to lose anymore. And that's when he dies.
So Vinny's a fan.
Maybe she's not really like a grief counselor.
Oh,
That was great.
The good thing is Vinny's coming in very neutral. Like he's
Yes.
yeah,
Very
I
impartial.
appreciate that.
that was fantastic.
So I got to get all the. So that's Vinny Politan. He's the lead anchor at Court TV on our show, MK True Crime. So make sure I give everybody credit where it's due.
By the way, speaking of Court TV, I do, while I've got, 6 people, there's 6 of us here, you know that Law and Crime is buying Court TV, and a lot of times Court TV owns the feed for these trials. And you also know that Law and Crime has a little bit of a history of trying to Bigfoot and kick independent creators off of sharing the stream. And if we can mix it in, and I would just love to get everybody's thoughts on that. If you think, no, it's perfectly fine, nothing to see here, or we need to be vigilant and watch what happens with consolidation.
I don't know enough about it other than I heard it's happening. I don't know when it's happening. I don't know how it's going to affect the day to day.
there are so many local channels who had pooled fields. I mean, this is starting to be big business now, streaming trials. Every local TV station are in the courtrooms now. But now you have this infamous Texas local channel that copyright strikes people for restreaming their pooled stream. And I've tried to talk to the courts down there, and I'm getting stonewalled. So I'm...
because public trials, it's not copyrightable. It's
no, exactly. That's my argument as well. What's the name again? WSOP 12 or something like that. They copyright claim everything.
Well,
then they wait the 30 days and then they release it, but by then nobody cares. So
isn't this a great argument for Phil's solution about having an official court feed? Because if everybody's using the official court feed, nobody can copyright strike.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. But if it's local news in there with their own cameras, then it's their footage, right? So it does actually seem like we need a structural solution.
It, and it's their product because they framed it and everything else. So there is a design to it.
Not always, because if the court says, here's where you're sitting, here's where you're filming, you're just the cameraman. And I think more and more courts, because I've actually talked to a couple of judges I'm in front of, and they've seen they've planned for, they've thought about, well, gosh, if I have something in my courtroom, and a couple of them have liked the idea of well, you could say in the thing, you retain no copyright or intellectual property interest in anything you film as a pool camera. And I've had a couple of judges I'm going to keep that in an order. That way there's none of this fighting over stuff.
Yeah.
But I think, but I don't know. We'll find out. As somebody who got copy struck by Law and Crime way back in the day, we'll see what happens.
But
I mean, they haven't done it in quite a few years now.
I will say that walk the dog letter, I think it's brilliant to like the way she tried to do it. Write it to your attorney. That's to keep the attorney-client privilege, right? It's a privileged communication. Then they open it, but it's not really to the lawyer. It's to this. So now the lawyer's got to go because now the lawyer's been passing these. So it's it's interesting to see. And like you said, sounds to me definitely consciousness of guilt, because why put it to your attorney? Why do it this way? Why have the whole thing? So it looks like she might be going down.
I mean, has there been motion practice on whether or not that can be admitted into evidence yet? Or is that going to be on the fly?
No, that was a pre-trial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's going to be more at trial for it.
Isn't it party? But it's a party opponent admission. She's a defendant. She wrote that down. That's
oh yeah, but she could say like I'm sure they litigated whether or not like she tried to address it to her lawyer. So is it still like blah blah blah?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, this was decided early 2025. I think that there's no attorney-client privilege involved here.
Great.
But it's still foundations and stuff. So of course. But yeah, there's no direct hindering from using it.
Yeah, this was a great comment, by the way.
Can I answer that comment? Can I speak to that? I know maybe so. Yes, the accused does have a right to a speedy and public trial, according to our Constitution. I don't know if it's the Sixth Amendment, but it
is. Yeah,
it's Sixth.
Sixth Amendment's right to counsel. I know that makes sense, but it's not just the accused. It's been ruled that the media has a First Amendment right in these things as well, because these are oftentimes newsworthy, and we have the freedom of the press gives the press a First Amendment right in terms of news gathering, and so the public at large has some rights as well, but specifically there's a First Amendment right that applies to individuals who want to access courts as well as the media. So it's not just the accused rights, it's the rights of everybody.
What about when they collide, though? Doesn't the accused win?
Well, so bracketing the fact that I don't know much about Utah law, but so just on general principles, that's why these things turn out to be a bit of a balancing test. And I think this is where you're going, Eric, where it's like, if the media, let's say, wants cameras and the prosecutor wants cameras, but the accused doesn't, the accused their position might weigh more heavily than if it was the other way around, because of the way the Sixth Amendment is drafted, right? And it depends on the circumstances. There's a number of factors that would be weighed in. I do think the accused has a weightier say in these contexts than other parties do, but that doesn't mean the accused automatically wins. It's just one factor amongst the courts consider.
Your point too, Ryan, as well. I want to get it in. It's cash. Sorry. Colorado system is kind of like that, Ryan, but the downside is you can't record or stream. So that's yet another variant.
Well, I'm not in their jurisdiction, so
you don't have to worry about it.
But
come extradite me, he said.
Now you can you might check the details with Andrea, but in Indiana, in the Rick Allen case, the Delphi trial, the defense
they asked for cameras. Yeah,
they asked for cameras. Reporters asked for cameras, and the judge said nope. And then she only allowed real journalists to walk up and look at the evidence, and that was upheld by the Indiana Supreme Court.
That should go all the way up. That would be a good precedent case to me to go all the way to Supreme Court. Define what is a real journalist. I mean, I'm being serious. I'm not being sarcastic. I feel like that is something that should be taken up there, because real, again, is not a thing according to the First Amendment last time I checked.
Though keep in mind that when these things go up, it's almost certainly going up on an abuse of discretion standard. So it's not like the appellate court's going to be like, if it was a close call, it's going to be affirmed, right? So because judges are given huge discretion in the way they manage their courtroom, their trial, true. And so I would very much doubt that the Supreme Court's going to want to create a national standard in this area.
That's true, Ryan. They do have very broad discretion. However, I wonder if when you're talking about substantive rights like First Amendment and the media, I don't know that abuse of discretion would necessarily always be the standard of review, because if you have a court that makes a ruling that violates the First Amendment, we're talking about a constitutional question at this point.
Oh, I could see that. I guess I was assuming a court that phrased its order with a little bit of savvy, right? Because if they said, like, for example, you have no First Amendment right to an open trial, then that's a de novo constitutional question. But if they instead said, yes, you have a First Amendment right, but we balance the factors, and in applying them in my discretion, it comes out this way, that's probably going to be abuse of discretion, because they're acknowledging the right. They're just applying the factors. And then it's like, do we like, when they said, for example, like, we're letting some journalists up and not other journalists, like that seems like a factual determination, not a legal, not a kind of broad constitutional determination.
So, it's interesting because I see it a little differently. I think you could play off maybe even the equal protection case here, in terms of, you can say, journalist versus non-journalist. What does that mean? And I also think too, the Supreme Court could take the case, but narrow the issue to what is, is this a protection only for journalists? If the court says, okay, these are the journalists, is this protection for the journalists or for everyone else? And by limiting just that opinion, then you don't have to change everything. You say, well, now go back and revisit this, but understanding the right is individualized for every American versus just your favorite few. So I think you could limit it in a way where you don't have to make this, broad ruling that not everybody's a journalist, but all cameras in the courtroom. But what defines what a journalist is? Who's that right protection?
But look at it this way. Let's say there's two journalists, right? They both want to come up and see the evidence. The judge says yes. Let's say there's 100,000 journalists. Is the judge obligated to let each come up, right? Or can they, in their discretion, start saying, look, enough is enough. Like, the public's going to hear about it. I'm going to let 5 people see it. I don't need 100,000 separate journalists to walk up and examine the evidence physically.
And I would point out, though, in this court case, though, that we're talking about where this happened, this judge had already been smacked down by the Supreme Court of Indiana for illegally removing counsel. She acted very heavy-handedly. She acted very inappropriately. So I think the idea of, like, certainly if this is just a regular judge, I give a little deference. But in the case we're talking about, this woman, I have no respect for. And
she makes. Let's just say, we who covered the Delphi trial, we wish we had Judge Bev as a judge.
Yeah, well, that's true.
We wish we had Judge Glanville as a judge. Judge Glanville from the YSL trial as a judge.
No, you don't.
Yes.
No, you don't. Yeah. You really don't.
This is the guy who's appeared in front of him, Nick.
No.
So you never know.
You don't want that guy.
You gotta be careful.
He's the one that got tossed off the YSL case for ethical violations for having ex parte conversations with one side, versus the other. And he's the one that tried to throw a defense lawyer in jail for doing his damn job.
Here's what Judge Eldridge. She denied Rick Allen a third-party culprit defense because she claims there's no nexus. There were a person admitting to a cop, not admitting, but told a cop, if my saliva is found on the victims and I can explain it away, am I still in trouble? She found that to have no nexus to the crime.
Well, look, disagreeing with the judge's ruling is fine, but that doesn't mean that you, in my opinion, doesn't mean that you want a judge who tries to throw defense lawyers in jail for being advocates for their.
Did Judge Glanville ever get sanctioned for his conduct, or is that still pending?
I don't know.
Things are pretty slow in Georgia. Hey, Phil, sorry to break the train of thought, but what's going on with Fannie and the 17 mil? Is she going to pay because they fighting hell and teeth not to pay that
talking
money?
about what Trump's claiming for reimbursement? Yeah. So just for background, so folks can understand what we're talking about. So Georgia passed a law. That whole fiasco lasted for a couple of years. So it was a few legislative sessions. So state legislature passed a law that was aimed specifically at this trial, and it basically said this: in Georgia, if you're a defendant in a case and your case gets dismissed or you win because a prosecutor is engaged in some kind of misconduct and they get recused from a case. See, we're talking about very narrow circumstances. You're entitled to recover costs of prosecution from the prosecutor, or in this case, the prosecutor's office. And so this is a law that was aimed, without mentioning her, it was clearly aimed specifically at her in this case, because there's really no other case ever anywhere that fits all those parameters. And so what's happened is, I don't think, which surprises me, I don't think all of the defendants, even the ones that didn't participate in Ashley Merchant's victorious motion to recuse, they all got the benefit of it. So they all are eligible under the law to claim this
except the ones who took a deal.
But they're not, except for those people, and they're not, but they're not all, to my knowledge, they're not all asking for it, which I don't understand. But the county, because it's not her personally, it's the county who has to foot the bill for this. They're like, we don't have it. We don't have it. So they're challenging it. They're challenging the law. They're saying the law is unconstitutional. For
if they shake her mattress, because I've heard she has a lot of cash.
She doesn't have to pay it personally. So it comes from the call. I live in Fulton County. It comes from me. So, and I don't particularly want to pay it. So I understand why the county would try to say, look, we this is an unconstitutional law, and we as the county government ought not to be on the hook for it.
So write this down. Phil is on Fani Willis's side.
Yeah. At least to the extent that Phil doesn't want his property tax bill to be $17 million next year.
I got my headline. No qualifications.
Yes.
Just throw that out there.
Yeah. Wait till Megan Kelly finds out.
Let's just say I understand the county's argument.
You can put Fannie Willis and Phil's head in a heart, and that can be the thumbnail for the.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, you do that.
That's a good clip. Note that for the clips. Phil and Fani forever. Phil and Fani forever. It's got an alliteration to it.
There's nothing, you won't get a better meme or whatever than, like, remember the video where Nathan Wade took forever to come up with his answer to the cabin question, and there's
that pause,
Barry White singing in the background and all.
Yes, that was great.
Yeah,
that was great.
Up in the think box.
But Phil, I do agree. This is basically just like up in New York when they passed that law of, look, apparently you could sue Donald Trump again for sex-related crimes, and it's like, it's just the other end of the lawfare at this point. It's the other side of it now being able to use it.
This one's weird,
kind of like an ex post facto kind of argument, maybe not exactly.
Extent,
Yeah, and there is I don't know if they're going to apply it here. There is some constitutional framework about whether you can pass a law that targets one person specifically, and whether or not that's appropriate, and how general the language has to be to get around it. I don't know whether or not that's going to fly in Georgia, though. But there's arguments they could at least make.
All right. So let me see. What do we have now? I want to do a little bit of self-promotion while we are on this. Like we've been speaking a lot about Utah, and as I said earlier, Nate and I did an episode here on Layback Law, this channel right here. You guys can check it out. Look in the past, and we did talk about a third Utah case, and that was the creator of the Squatty Potty, who is in a lot of trouble at the moment. He is being indicted, and there's a detention trial, I guess, coming up in March. Whether, I guess, he's going to be held, I can't say what the charges are for, but essentially it's all the YouTubers say CP, folks, CP, and he's accused of purchasing CP with PayPal, and the guy is very famous from his appearances on Shark Tank. We covered that yesterday. We also covered the illustrious Candace Owens, which ties in directly too, because she is laying out every other case known to man other than Tyler Robinson in terms of the murder of Charlie Kirk. So if you wanted to hear what's going on with her, that's a nice compliment to this. It gives a full coverage of all the possibilities. The guy who's actually on trial, and then the rest of the universe. And Nate, what else do we have coming up?
No, actually, just our regular stuff that's happening. I know I'm getting a lot of hits online because people are saying, Nate, you're covering these crazy cases, but they all happen to be the minorities or black people. And I'm like, well, hold on. This is what I put into the AI. Find me public corruption cases. The craziest ones. 90% of them came out to be minority or black people, right? So I'm like, all right, this AI is racist. Let me go use all the other AIs. And they all showed me the same cases. So I'm like, well, either whole, this is crazy. So I just want people to know, I like crazy cases. Like I had the crazy white judge who did 2 drive-by shootings. Nobody said anything about that. Then I get the crazy mayor yesterday that he's sex trafficking and day 1 in office. Like that's something I thought was crazy. So I think people need to kind of calm down. I like crazy cases. I'm going to report on the crazy cases. And if you like to listen to the crazy cases, watch my videos. If you don't want, if you say, hey, that's too many black people or too many white people, then you're at the wrong channel because I cover crazy. I love crazy.
I want to watch Nate.
Yeah.
I just want more Nate. Phil.
Yeah.
There's celebrity here at the moment under the Megan Kelly Network. What's going on with you?
Well, over at MK True Crime, I had a unusual opportunity. I went out to Arizona, to Tucson a couple of weeks ago. It was on Super Bowl Sunday.
That's where I'm from.
I got a message from our executive producer. Hey, Megan and I were thinking about something that's really off the wall idea. How would you feel, or would you be able to make it? Like if you were to go out there and like cover this for us for MK Media, how would that be okay? It was like if it doesn't get wrapped up by tomorrow. I'm thinking, sure, let me know. We'll talk about it tomorrow. I'm getting ready for a Super Bowl party. So later on that day, I got another message like, can you leave tonight? I'm like, well, okay. Now things are starting to get serious. So I wound up going out there and not really knowing what to do. Had no idea what to expect. It's something that I'm not out in the field working as a journalist and that kind of thing. And so this was a new experience for me, but I was able to get out there and I sort of found my bearings and actually ran into a lot of people in the media that I know and have known for quite some time in many instances. So I was able to get out there and get a pretty good feel. And it's just like, when those of us who have been prosecutors, and I think to a lesser extent, although it's important, defense lawyers, you should always go to the scene because it helps you understand sort of how things fit together. It just gives you a better sense of situational awareness. So I spent a week out there on that, and that was an interesting experience. We have a lot of other things on the horizon. We're getting ready to make an exciting programming announcement in the very near future. I wish I could talk more. Maybe next Friday we'll be able to do that. But we're growing. We're doing well. We're just trying to stay on top of the true crime cases that are topical and are in the news.
Thank you. Nick, what's going on, man?
Well, you can watch me and Mo in the Deep End on my channel and on her channel. We are doing dual streams. Well, not dual streams. We are jumping back and forth for the Kouri Richins trial. I handle the more of the law stuff. Mo is more the vibe person, and our chat have named us Santa Claus and Sailor Mo.
Oh my!
So.
Well, you are closer to the North Pole than everyone here, so okay.
Yes.
That's so perfect.
And other than that, my channel is where you find weird cases, strong opinions, and you can always count on one thing.
All right.
Very nice.
Which happens in way more trials than it should.
All right.
So
Ryan, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Ryan, who are you debating next? What's going on?
Yeah, so as fans of this channel know, because you've been so supportive, and thank you all, I have a little YouTube channel called Natural Law with Ryan C. Mullally. So if you look for Ryan C. Mullally on YouTube, you can find me. I only started streaming a few months ago, and thanks to support of people like you, and particularly the laid back law community, we're going strong and growing rapidly. So very much appreciate that. I cover American law, particularly constitutional law and American philosophy. And I'm actually leaning a little bit harder on the philosophy side in the upcoming week. So I'm doing a conversation on Sunday about deism, American philosophy, and the role in the founding. On Monday, I co-host a show called Law and Order, where I provide legal analysis to populist Rob Knorr. So that's coming up on Monday. And then later this week, doing a conversation with Andrew Wilson of recent Joe Rogan fame about American legal theory and our philosophy at the founding. So should be some interesting stuff coming up. Swing on by.
All right. Just don't ask him about his wife.
He does not like that. No.
He might be
Though
sensitive.
Rachel was on Joe Rogan yesterday. She wasn't on yesterday, but it was aired. So now both members of the Wilson family have done the Joe Rogan experience.
Okay.
Brian
When are
Shapiro's
you going?
tatters.
You know what? If Joe asked me, I'll buy a ticket. You know,
Yeah.
on the record, Joe Rogan, you want to chat? I'll clear my schedule. It's all good.
Actually, you'll be on Tim Pool, I bet, before that.
Yeah, Tim
I
Pool.
think you're probably
can't get on
circling
Tim
Tim
Pool.
Pool. I've been on there a couple times, but I have a feeling Ryan's going to wind up on Tim Pool. Just a gut instinct.
I think Tim would like what I do. So
Yeah.
Sean is the guy that brought Ryan to the panel, by the way. So it's his fault.
yeah.
What's up with you, Sean?
Not much. I've been covering Kouri Richins when I get home for the day, so we'll be keeping on that as we go here. So if you guys work during the day, like obviously I'm in court during the day, if you guys want to see it, we watch it at the end of the day. It's also nice that I don't know what it is about this courtroom, but everybody there speaks so slow, and when you put it out like 1.5 times speed, they sound normal. So we get through it even quicker. But we are doing that on we're doing that usually about like 6 or usually about 6:30 Eastern time. I start it up and we try to catch up for the day. So
Now, before you guys leave, after we close the show, stay for a second because I want to ask you guys a question on the back end. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm teasing the audience. There you go, Nate. Everybody's gonna be
Yeah.
like, what did they ask? What did they ask? Anyway, so you guys can answer on X if you wish to reveal or not.
Yeah, if you want to know what we talked about, you got to send big Patreon money to Eric. That's the only way to know. It's
Eric needs it here, guys. This is a disaster. So, speaking of Eric, okay, coming up, I believe this weekend I'm going to have Gavin Stone on my channel, the Eric Hunley channel. I don't talk about that much here, but he reached out to me. We're going to look at, Gavin does a lot of body language, statement analysis, things like that, but we're going to look at Hillary Clinton and her press conference.
We have to look at
after her testimony, along with some of the people, who are putting spin on what happened or didn't happen.
is that the one Penny Johnson crashed or messed with?
What?
I thought something happened where
they leaked
the
a
picture
photo to Benny
about
Johnson.
that. Whatever. That came up when she cried about that. I'm sure we'll talk about that. That's only a minor part.
Yes.
But she did address some of the questions. She had some responses. We're going to cover that and some of the spin on both sides, because both sides are like, oh, it was a disaster. Oh, she ran circles around him. Whatever it is, probably this weekend. And tonight I'll have America's Untold Stories. But most importantly, this content right here with all these folks. Nate and I do every Thursday by ourselves, and Friday we're doing a full panel. So if you like this kind of content, consider subscribing. It's free. Or following if you're on Rumble. Again, it's free. So it helps us a ton. We appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next show.
Thanks, guys.
Mm-hmm.